You wake up in the middle of a story. A whole world. People you've never met, but somehow knew. A place that made perfect sense 5 seconds ago. You lie there for a second, still inside it. You can feel the emotion of it, the fear, or the joy, or the strange calm. And then you reach for your phone, or sit up, or roll over. By the time you're brushing your teeth, it's gone. Not faded, gone. You're left holding a single image, maybe a feeling, and absolutely nothing else. For most people, this happens almost every single night, and it feels like a failure, like your memory glitched right when something interesting was finally happening. But here's the strange part. What if your brain isn't failing to save the dream? What if it's actively choosing not to, on purpose, every single night, by design? Let's start with what's actually happening while you sleep. In 1959, a French researcher named Michel Jouvet was studying cats. He noticed that for short stretches during sleep, their brain activity looked almost identical to being wide awake, fast, active, electrically busy. But their muscles were almost completely paralyzed. Jouvet called this paradoxical sleep. Today, most people know it as REM sleep, named for the rapid eye movements that go with it. Here's something else worth knowing. REM periods aren't spread evenly through the night. Early on, they're short, sometimes just a few minutes. But as the night goes on, each one gets longer. By early morning, a single REM period can stretch past 30 minutes, which is part of why the dreams right before you wake up tend to feel longer, richer, and more story-like than anything earlier in the night. Here's what makes it paradoxical. The brain is, in some ways, more active during REM than it is during plenty of waking moments. Visual areas light up, emotional centers light up, often more intensely than when you're awake. The brain is, in a very real sense, running a full simulation. And yet, almost none of it gets saved. So the question becomes, why would a brain build something this elaborate every single night and then immediately throw most of it away? The answer starts with a chemical you've probably never thought about: norepinephrine, also called noradrenaline. Norepinephrine is one of the key chemicals your brain uses to tag experiences as worth remembering. When something important happens while you're awake, norepinephrine helps stamp that moment into long-term memory. It's part of what makes a near miss on the highway unforgettable while an ordinary afternoon blurs together. Researcher J. Allen Hobson spent decades studying what happens to brain chemistry during REM sleep. And what he and others found is almost unbelievable once you think about it. During REM sleep, the brain region that produces norepinephrine, a small cluster of cells called the locus coeruleus, goes almost completely silent. Not reduced, not quieter, essentially off. Which means your brain is generating this whole vivid experience with all its emotional intensity, while the exact chemical needed to file it away for later is switched off. It's like recording a movie with the save button disabled. The picture plays, the sound plays, but nothing gets written to the hard drive. This same chemical shift might also explain why dreams are so strange. Hobson's activation synthesis model suggests that during REM, the brain's visual and emotional centers fire somewhat randomly, generating images, faces, and feelings, while the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic, planning, and noticing when something doesn't add up, is significantly less active. So instead of questioning why you're back in your old school wearing pajamas while your childhood dog gives a business presentation, your brain just goes with it and stitches together a story afterward. This is also why dreams can feel so emotionally intense in the moment, but almost impossible to hold on to. The feeling-generating parts of the brain are running at full power. The memory-filing parts have been told to stand down. So even while the dream is happening, it's already built to disappear. But there's a second piece to this. It's not only that the save function is off, it's that the part of your brain that would normally receive and organize new memories isn't fully online either. A researcher named Pierre Maquet used brain imaging to study what's happening between different brain regions during REM sleep. One of his key findings involved the relationship between the hippocampus, the brain's memory formation hub, and the prefrontal cortex, which helps organize and contextualize those memories afterward. During normal waking life, these regions talk to each other constantly. The hippocampus captures a moment, and the prefrontal cortex helps slot it into your ongoing life story. Today, this week, this relationship, this place. During REM sleep, that conversation gets disrupted. The hippocampus is active, it's clearly doing something, but its connection to the regions that would normally stabilize and contextualize that information is weakened. The result is a memory that's created but never properly filed. It exists for a moment in a kind of limbo, and then it's gone. This explains something almost everyone has experienced. If you wake up in the middle of a dream and don't get up immediately, the dream can evaporate within minutes, not hours, minutes. Some sleep researchers describe a window of just a few minutes after waking. If the dream isn't reinforced somehow by writing it down, talking about it, or even just replaying it deliberately in your mind, it's gone, often completely, as if it never happened. It behaves almost exactly like an item in short-term memory that was never moved into long-term storage. You held it, briefly, and then the slot got cleared. This is also why dream journaling actually works. If you write down a dream the moment you wake up, you're doing two things. First, you're catching the content before that short window closes. Second, putting it into words and a timeline is itself a kind of manual filing, doing with conscious effort what norepinephrine usually does automatically. People who keep dream journals don't necessarily dream more. They're just rescuing the memory before it gets deleted. This also explains why some people seem to remember dreams constantly, while others almost never do. It usually isn't that one group is dreaming more. It's that they're waking up more often. Every time you wake up, even briefly, near the end of a REM period, you get a small window where the dream is still active in short-term memory, and your waking, norepinephrine-rich brain is back online. If you happen to wake during or right after REM, the dream has a chance to get captured. If you sleep straight through that transition, it doesn't. This is part of why nightmares often feel more memorable than pleasant dreams. A nightmare frequently triggers a small jolt of arousal, sometimes a full waking moment with a surge of stress hormones. That surge is exactly the kind of signal that helps memories stick. So it's not that scary dreams are inherently more rememberable, it's that they're more likely to wake you up at the exact moment your brain briefly switches its recording function back on. So far, this has all been about mechanism. The chemistry, the connectivity, the timing, but there is a deeper question underneath all of it. Why would a brain be built to run these elaborate nightly simulations in the first place if it wasn't going to keep the results? One influential idea comes from researcher Antti Revonsuo, who proposed what's sometimes called the threat simulation theory of dreaming. The idea is this. Dreaming may function as a kind of offline rehearsal space, a place where the brain can run through threatening, emotional, or socially complex scenarios, practicing responses, without any real-world risk. Under this view, the dream itself isn't the point. The dream is more like a workout. What matters isn't whether you remember every rep at the gym. What matters is what the workout does to your body afterward. This kind of nightly processing doesn't seem to be unique to humans either. Researchers studying rats have found that during sleep, the same brain cells that fired while a rat ran through a maze during the day fire again afterward in the same sequence while the rat sleeps. In a sense, the rat's brain is replaying its day. There's no reason to think the rat wakes up with anything like a memory of the dream itself, but the replay appears to help strengthen what it learned. The processing happens whether or not anything gets consciously remembered afterward. A dream where you're being chased, or showing up somewhere unprepared, or facing someone you've lost might be doing real work, adjusting emotional responses, rehearsing reactions, processing the day, even if the specific footage never makes it to your conscious memory. This isn't the only theory about why we dream, but it pairs well with another line of research. Psychologist Rosalind Cartwright studied people going through emotionally difficult periods, including divorce, and found that how people dreamt about their situation was connected to how well they were coping with it afterward. People whose dreams directly engage with the difficult emotions, rather than avoiding them, tended to show better emotional recovery months later. The dreaming itself seemed to be doing some of the emotional processing, whether or not the dreamer remembered a single image from it the next morning. In that sense, forgetting the dream isn't a failure of the system. It might be evidence that the system already did its job. Think about it this way. Every night, your brain builds an entire world. It populates that world with people, places, fears, and feelings pulled from your memory and your emotional life. It runs you through it, fully immersed, fully feeling it. And then, by design, it clears the stage. No chemical tag saying, remember this. No handoff to the part of your brain that organizes your life story. Just a quiet shutdown of the recording system, so tomorrow's simulation can start with a blank set. So the next time you wake up holding the last fading scrap of a dream, watching it dissolve no matter how hard you try to hold on, that's not your memory failing you. That's your brain finishing a process it was never designed to broadcast. You woke up in the middle of a story, a whole world built overnight just for you, and then quietly taken apart before you were even fully awake. Not because it didn't matter, but because, as far as your brain is concerned, the work was already done.